Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. Today, we're going to be talking about listening to your wisdom heart. And I use that term quite frequently, and I'm going to kind of tell you a little story behind it whenever today. In the meantime, let me share the screen with you. Share the screen and bring up talking about listening to your wisdom heart. And so, here we go. Life is a wonderful and a mysterious gift. We were given life thanks to our parents and also thanks to one of the mysteries of the universe that and we were gifted. Part of life is the gifting of five senses to enhance our learning and enjoyment as we go through life. And occasionally we get a little ESP in there, an extra sensory perception will slip in. And I find it so interesting that whenever I'm called toward the end of the month to send out the topics and so forth for the next month, I'll just come up with something, kind of maybe think of a theme or whatever. And it just amazes me how it always plays hand in hand with real life. So I'm wondering, are you thankful to be one of the 7.6 billion souls currently living on planet Earth? And if by any chance there would not be a big thanks there, then maybe listening to our wisdom heart could help to understand why not. And so one of the things that I brought out that was just as I was doing this morning, kind of putting down what I wanted to talk about, I thought about how King Solomon was one that had influenced me to continually say, listen to your wisdom heart, or I want to consult with my wisdom heart because of the story about King Solomon. And I found it so interesting that, we're talking about Britain and the royal family there and the coronation of the king. But anyway, Solomon was ready to be crowned the king of Israel, Judah. And so the night before the coronation, he had a dream. And in this dream, God came to him, spoke to him, and asked him what he wanted. What do you need? What is going to be the footprints of your reign? And King Solomon said, I am but a child. I do not know how to go out. I don't know how to come in. The magnitude of all our subjects cannot be numbered or counted. So I'm asking that you would give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and bad. And in this dream, God answered him. And he said, because, Solomon, you have not asked for things, and you have not asked for yourself long life, you haven't asked for riches, you haven't even asked that if I would knock off your enemies for you, but you have asked understanding and good discernment and judgment. And so I'm going to give you what you ask. I have given you a wise and an understanding heart, so that there is none like it, and that no one will be able to rise unto the likes of thee. So I have given you what you have not asked for. And I find it so interesting that whenever we really do listen to our wisdom heart, because it's always talking to us, it's always talking to us, but you have to get real quiet and you have to really listen. That when we do listen to our wisdom heart, it can help us to override all of those frustrations that's going on in our mind. And Solomon's legacy is one of an unprecedented prosperity and justice. And so the ego mind versus the wisdom heart. And they're not companions at all, but they are both a part of us. And so just a few thoughts as to what the ego is. It has a reason and a purpose, or it would not be a part of our body. So it's one of those continuing mysteries of life, from my point of view. Anyway, this ego it's never satisfied. It's give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. I want this, I want that, I want something else. The ego has no authentic power. Now, it can yell and scream at us and give us all kinds of desires and so forth, but it does not have an authentic power. That comes from our other part of the brain that gives us that ability to make choices. In going with choice theory, that we really do have the power to make those choices. The ego attacks, it separates, and it just drenches us with guilt. Oh, you're not as good as you thought you were. You're this, you're that, you're something else. The ego uses our anger to be inflated so that we think we are bombarding something else in order to protect ourselves. But it's an illusion. The ego focuses on our error and then dismisses us with, well, but you can't help being that way. That's just the way you are. The ego is capable of suspicion at best and viciousness at worst. It can really, plant all these things to make you think, and maybe to even make you angry. Ego is vulnerable and it's insecure. The ego identifies with the external. I want what he's got. I want what she's got. I want that. I want that outfit. It identifies with the external. The ego continually needs to be fed. It needs to be stoked. It needs to be appreciated. And its needs are endless, absolutely endless. And so the ego is always seeking something to attach itself to because it doesn't have any standing on its own. I know frequently, whenever I get frustrated, I just stop and listen to my wisdom heart and tell the ego mind to detach. Just detach, detach. And Wayne Dyer, speaker and author, I love his definition of ego. He says the ego is edging God out. It's not listening to wisdom. And if trying to think of it as God speaking to you, maybe it could be looked at as edging grace out or edging goodness out or exiting or edging gentleness out. But whenever we get to that, anyway, I hope you get that. So it's listening to our wisdom heart. It's saying yes to the heart. Because the brain will spin what we've been thinking and try to override what our wisdom heart is really speaking to us, as it speaks in a very small voice. So we need to observe what's going on inside and say yes to the experience. Now, I'm suggesting here that it's not a real pleasurable experience, okay? So say yes to that anxiety. Say yes to that fear. Say yes to that tension. Because the difference in the ego and the wisdom heart has strength, it has boldness, it has courage, it has ability to really think. And that's been proven again and again through the HeartMath Institute, that there is a direct line from our heart to our brain that gives it messages, but there's also studies that show that it deads in on the way. And so we have to make the pathway for it and edge out the weeds so that message can come all the way into our brain. Anyways, we say yes to the experience. And you may say, oh, no, I'm not going to say yes to tension or fear or anger or whatever. But you see, when we say yes to something and we give it a little bit of space so that yes can unfold, then we can get in touch with what we're really hearing. We can get in touch with what is really the most effective. By saying yes to a seemingly negative situation gives yourself permission to relate to life differently. Gives yourself the permission to relate to life differently, to the circumstances differently. And knowing that failure is not fatal, to and neither is being in a slump. That happens to all of us. So do not allow setbacks to discourage or to paralyze you, but stop, breathe deeply, rethink, regroup, and get back in the driver's seat instead of having all of those thoughts just thrown at you. Allow the obstacle to slow you down just enough so that you can reawaken to how deeply this dream is and give yourself a roadmap to your destiny. And then always listen and learn. Pay attention to mistakes or to the lethargy or to the excitedness. Pay attention to that and allow those missteps to work for you. Maybe you're too excited. Maybe you're too doubtful. Maybe it's a little too heavy. As you begin to breathe deep and to give a little thought there, growing research shows again and again that we can rewire our brain to approach those old habits of thoughts with new challenges. That if we've been just reacting, this happened, well, this happened, so this happened. Well, no, this happened, but you know what? This doesn't have to happen. We can stop and let's say, wait a minute, stop, let me rethink this. So listen and learn. And is your brain working with it? Yes, it is. But it's also sending that message into the heart as to what are you saying. So in listening to it, we want to be good to you. The key is to turn any of that paralyzing fear into energy. But how? Well, try a little self-compassion. Psychologists tell us that self-compassion or compassion in just compassion itself is the greatest healing emotion there is. Compassion is a healing emotion. And that comes from the heart. It rarely ever comes from the mind. So love yourself enough to believe in you. Believe that you do deserve better. Believe that you can plan. Believe that you can succeed. And then we want to talk to our heart because the heart's always listening. Always, always listening. Beating up on yourself has never accomplished anything. So don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay. Everybody has a down day. That's just part of life. But it's what do you do next? What's the next action that you take? So if your dream was impossible, believe me, you would not have thought about it in the first place. So you want to nurture your growth by treating yourself gently. And then always, always don't cope, overcome. To me, coping is so stressful. And so I want to just get rid of that stress and listen to my wisdom heart. So what are the steps for overcoming? Because the bottom line is, and we got to get to the bottom line because that's where the foundation is that life and decisions and the way we interact really is all about us. So those outside validations of who we are, we've got to get inside so we know truly deep inside who we are, that we generate the results we believe that we deserve, the ones that we know who we really are. The heart knows who you really are. So heartmath.com was founded by Doc Chedgray, and he says, accessing our heart's natural intelligence can create an energetic field of unconditional love and harmonious interactions, helping humanity to realize we are one earth, one yard, one people. And so there's a proverb that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And this is hundreds of years old, those proverbs from way, way back then. And as we think, not in our brain as we think in our heart, so we are. And of course, that can be for the positive or the negative. And I add to it, or so he becomes. Whatever we're thinking about in our heart, not just our brain, but in our heart, is what we become. And so I want to become successful. I want to become energetic. I want to become kind and compassionate. So here I've got just a few kind of breaking down some heart healthy habits. One is to be uniquely you. There's another proverb that says, they that compare themselves among themselves are not wise. Well, do you want to be wise? Well, then, if you think someone else is smarter, I wish I could be as smart as they were. Well, maybe you can be. But, to compare yourself among them, it's just not wise. It may be okay to look and see that I admire their talents, I admire whatever, and I would like to be more like that. But comparing it that I could never match up, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so, also, not only being uniquely you, but to cultivate creativity. And in cultivating this creativity, ask your heart, not your mind, ask your heart, well, what else could I think? What other thing can I do? Be curious about everything. And also, a healthy heart habit is to be thankful. And I started to put on there, be thankful for everything, but I thought that might be a little too heavy to dump out until you really just begin to become thankful for just to become thankful. Thankful for the storms, thankful for the rain, thankful for the slow traffic, thankful for, because that thankfulness is going to keep your heart healthier than having that stress put on your mind. And in the process of being thankful, also express gratitude. And gratitude, I mean, we receive what we give out, and we only give what we've ever received. And so, I mean, express gratitude and be thankful. Just it's a really good habit that's going to help your heart palpate in an even keel. And then also learn to forgive. Ah, maybe too much to ask? No, it's asking you to take care of you, to forgive yourself for what you did do, for what you didn't do, for what you didn't know to do, you didn't have a clue about. Forgive others. What? For what they did, for what they didn't do, for what they didn't have a clue about. And I find it interesting when I look at the word forgive, to me, it relates to moving forward. It relates to being free. It relates to uh, having those memories of harm and discouragement to fade. And I find that all of life abhors a void. If we don't take care of our yard, take care of our garden, then the weeds will come in, because all of nature, all of life abhors a void, and something will fill in that void. It will fill in that void. And so that caveat to forgiveness, I just wanted to bring this up in going with the 12-step program. There are many, many times that someone in the field and wanting to be forgiven for the things so that they can move forward and be more free and so forth. Sometimes you need to be real cautious in going to the person that you need to ask forgiveness from. And so to really listen to your wisdom heart in doing it, as well as listening to those that are on your side to help you overcome those negative habits. And so just a couple more things here in nurture relating. How can you relate to so there's someone around that's really angry, or there's someone that is spouting off a doctrine of some kind that is really against your, how can you nurture to relate to that person in a way that can see why is so dogmatic as opposed to being relatable. You know, it may be a very valid point they're trying to get across, maybe a very valid point that we are trying to get across, but do it in a way that nurtures being able, being willing to listen to and understand. And then practice faith. Faith in what? Well, maybe faith that the sun will come up tomorrow. That's been a pretty consistent thing. But sometimes, whenever we think that dark night is so deep and it's so lonely, we may think that tomorrow's not going to be so good. So just practice a little faith. Practice a little faith in you. What is it that you want to do that you really can do if the want to is weighty enough? And again, that goes back to the heart, where the courage is, where the boldness is, where the way we think in our heart. If you think in your heart as being a nothing, then that's the way you project yourself. So practice faith. Practice faith in winning that tennis match. Practice faith in whatever. And then also just to embrace the unknown. Well, I don't know. I have several of those going on in my life right now. And which one to, but I embrace that because life works itself out. Now, that doesn't mean that you just sit down and, suck your thumb or go to sleep or whatever, but to embrace the unknown. And then also to savor life's special moments. To just be a special moment go-to finder. To that something that just brings in something so special, and look for it, and then pause and listen so that you can hear that silent wisdom. That silent wisdom. Got a phone call just about 10 minutes before the getting ready for this broadcast, and it was my granddaughter calling to announce the fact that she has been proposed to. And I know. And so I said, oh, wait a minute, before we talk anymore, let me go. So that, so your grandfather can understand too, can hear too. And so, but those special moments, just savor them. And you can always get back to what you're doing. Well, here's a little poem. I want to finish our talk today with a poem that I wrote several years ago, and it's called In Spite Of. And as I put this down to share with you, I thought, well, this seems like kind of backwards from what you're talking about listening to your wisdom heart. You're going to look at some spite. But I do not remember the comedians that did the little interaction, but one of them would talk about, well, this came into my life and I met this person, and oh, well, that's wonderful. Well, no, it's not wonderful, because then they did me wrong. And I had this horse, and oh, well, that's great that you had this winning horse. Well, no, it's not good, because he broke his leg. And it was all these things back and forth, back and forth. Oh, well, that's good. Oh, well, that's bad. Well, no, it wasn't so bad, because if he hadn't have broken his leg, I wouldn't have met so and so. Oh, well, that's good. Well, no, it's not good, because then blah, 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 blah. And so that's the way life is a whole lot. It's those bad things that can show us the good. It's those good things that can show us how we can shun the negative. So here's my poem, In Spite Of. Life, in spite of the difficulties, is good. Something to be thankful for, to appreciate. Parents, in spite of their flaws, are honorable. The position of mom or dad, the office of mom or dad, is an honorable position. Depends on how we handle it. Our mates, in spite of their differences, are blessings. Children, in spite of the frustrations, are rewards. Work, in spite of the hassle, is a gift. And victory, in spite of the defeat, is sweet. Well, I thank you very much for being here, and many blessings to all.